Hello, my name is Noelia Abreu. I'm a student at the University of Delaware, currently studying positive youth development this summer, and welcome to my TED Talk. I grew up with probably one of the most deep-seated, conflicted households anyone can have. That's my perspective on things, living in my bubble of life. I know others have it way worse, unfortunately. Most of my life, I wanted answers as to why I am the way I am and why my family was the way they were. Studying divorce and, most importantly, conflict in marriages and homes helped me find those answers to family dysfunction and my development. It is important for me to dive deeper into my development in order to heal and not repeat the same mistakes. So let's get into it. So as I mentioned before, I'm taking a course on positive youth development, and I'm just going to be discussing one of the underpinnings of positive youth development, which is having a positive family environment in context with conflict in the household and what it's like for a child to be having parents who are divorcing. My personal link to marital and family conflict would be that my parents had a lot of conflict in their marriage when I was growing up. My mother would make my siblings and I be the middleman in most conflicts regarding money with my father and among other things. Being the youngest, I took on most of the emotional burdens because of the conflict from ages, let's say, 9 to now. Present day, since they are still married and have conflict from a distance. I had not realized my parents' marriage conflicts were actually the underpinning of the conflict within my family as a whole, or at least a big piece of it. As I grew older, I realized that many families have conflicts that are burdensome to some degree in their life, and I realized not every family had such conflict in their homes at the same time. I realized children were able to articulate their pain and sadness to their parents, and the parents would actively try to change their own behavior for the success of their children, adolescents in the household. So, marital conflict leading to familial conflict is something where it's based in the family structure and dynamics, along with how conflict resolution is reached, and therefore can affect the youth of the development of the youth in a positive or negative way, depending on how that resolution is reached or even reached in the first place. Ineffective conflict resolution, exemplified by parents, can lead to children not being able to cope or learn conflict resolution skills themselves as adults or growing older as adolescents. The youth perspective on negative development, the quality of connection with family and friends is hindered when there's conflict or divorce within families through means of possibly negative emotional transmission from the parent to child. So you can see how being the youngest could be very burdensome when the adult in your life is dealing with negative emotions that can be passed on to the child. A child's sense of competence can be affected negatively or positively, depending on whether the parent is consistent with their support and discipline of the child. An example would be children from single-parent homes usually gain more independence, which is competence in sectors of their life, which is positive development when the child is able to feel they have autonomy and trust from the parent and support to carry out these independent acts. The overall stress of the conflictual home caused youth to have anxiety, depression, and even physical symptoms that do lower confidence and self-esteem. So speaking of depression, anxiety, and low self-esteem, low self-confidence, these are outcomes that were studied to come from homes with conflict. the well-being of the adolescent decreased in homes of conflicts compared to adolescents in homes where only divorce occurred. In general, quote, children high in frustration, impulsivity, and low in effortorial control are more vulnerable to adverse effects of negative parenting, while in turn many negative parenting behaviors predict increases in these characteristics. This is to say that when conflict happens in the home, parents usually have a negative parenting effects on the child, and in turn the child becomes frustrated with the circumstances of their situation, and usually act out in impulsive and low control ways where it just creates a cycle to trigger more negative parenting. The stress of the conflict in a home can be processed as being different from peers, and not being able to relate to peers, therefore obstructing the social well-being of youth and adolescents in conflicted households. This is seen in divorce as well, but since divorce is becoming more common, it is less stigmatized among peers. So, with the parent's perspective, all about the parents. During divorce and conflict, parents can become more self-preoccupied with their own emotions during conflict and divorce. This is a reference from the reading. Parents can lose self-esteem and self-worth after divorce due to feeling like they are a failure after the marriage could not sustain itself any longer. Parents can in turn continue being engaged in the child's life or lose involvement in the child's academics, friend and social life, and overall well-being because they're so preoccupied. Fathers are seen to be commonly the parent that becomes less involved in the child's day-to-day endeavors during divorce. To conclude, parents must recognize that divorce is a better alternative to having a conflicting household. It is better for the youth's development. Divorce is what you make it. The child support system and love they receive should be streamlined and have the most efforts to not making such a drastic change if not necessary. Conflict and unhealthy internalization of the parent's self-worth should be mitigated. The above relating to the frequency of family dinners article about having family dinner time in order to help mitigate problems behavior in children, it is beneficial to the youth development, and it should be seen as a model of just family dinner allows for connecting time and quality time with the family and the parents. Although family dinners is a way to do it, it just is an example of how the child benefits from knowing they have a support system and can have quality time with the parents and catch up on things with parents. So parents should be encouraged to attempt to have an equal and involved role in the adolescent's life. Thank you for coming to my TED Talk. It was nice having you all. Thank you. So to reiterate, what I've learned studying positive youth development would be that the parents are very integral into how the child, the youth, sees themselves and sees themselves in the world. And I realized that my parents made some mistakes with staying married, but I can only learn from that and move on from that and understand that not to repeat the same mistakes.